Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, Audrey. Hi, everybody. Welcome, everyone. We'll give everybody just another minute or so. Okay, welcome everyone. I have by my clock, it's 10 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. And I do believe we have a quorum. You should have an agenda in your packet, as well as a lot of other attachments, and I'll try to do my best to direct your attention to those as we go through the meeting. A couple of ground rules regarding Zoom. So one thing that I'd like to ask you to do is practice with me something, and that is if you go down to the participants option at the bottom of the screen, you should be able to see a list of everyone. And towards the bottom on the right-hand corner, you should see the opportunity to raise hand. And I'd like to use that if you do want to be recognized during the meeting, just go ahead and please use that raise hand option. That's going to help me kind of organize our meeting and make sure everybody gets an opportunity to respond if there are questions. And certainly as we go through it, we'll have some reports and we'll have some motions and so forth. If for some reason I drop off the call, I'll rely on Art to take over, and I do have a backup. So if that happens, I will join on a separate device. So at this time, what I'd also like to do is welcome Gene Smith, who is representing the foundation board. And I know that he would like to share a few remarks for us before we get into the business of our meeting.
Yes. Can you hear me okay, Tom?
I can hear you just fine. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate this minute or so to speak to you. I was remiss in the last March. I had, excuse me, Joe speak to a group that Ann and my wife and I are members of in Lynchburg, the Military Order of the World Wars. It's made up of individuals who've had been commissioned officers in the military at some point in their career, in their lives. And Joe was nice enough to come over and speak to us on a Sunday night when we normally have our meetings. And I should have sent a letter to both boards, and I didn't think about it at the time, but he did an incredible job, made me look good. And but anyway, he represented the museum well, spoke of the museum. I don't think anybody in there knew about it. He spoke of the Waynesboro project, and at the end of the presentation, there were an incredible number of questions. So I think Joe needs to be recognized. I should have at the time for doing a great job. And I was talking to Joe yesterday about this when I was over for the foundation board meeting. It's mind-boggling to me how the best kept secret in Virginia has so few people know about it. We're 70 miles from Martinsville, and how few people know about it. And I want to try to rectify that if I can. Joe was nice enough before I left yesterday to introduce me to two nice, really bright and nice young employees you all have there, Maddie, I believe, and Hayden. And they are very much interested in, we have some common interests, particularly Hayden and I, in the landscape and the history of the land. And they are interested in coming to Red Hill, and I'm going to try to have them over there one day in the very near future and showing them around Red Hill, and hopefully Red Hill can get more involved in the Leatherwood project over at the foundation over at in Martinsville. But also something I've thought about since I spoke with Joe yesterday, I think it would be really good to make more people aware of the Virginia Museum of Natural History. If we could have a station on living history. Living history is a really popular event at Red Hill, and I think that would be another great way to publicize the Virginia Museum of Natural History. Ward Burton, the former Daytona 500 winner, has a station on animals in this geographic area going back for millennium. And it's really a fascinating presentation. I've witnessed it myself. And I think we could have another station for the Virginia Museum of Natural History and cover things that they didn't cover, but it would really call attention to the Virginia Museum.
Thanks.
So anyway.
Yeah, thanks, Gene, for that and recognizing our executive director. It's always good to hear that we're out in the community and sharing the good news about the museum. And I agree with you, where we have opportunity to do that, we want to continue to do so. And I recognize also that you can't stay for the entire meeting. And I did notice that Len Poulin is also sitting in on the meeting to represent the foundation. So appreciate your service in the past, Gene, and certainly thank you for those kind words.
Sure.
So
and again,
what I'd like to do is get us onto our agenda then. And you should see that as attachment number 1. And the first item of action will be the approval of our minutes, which is item number 2. So I'd like to take any comments or suggestions on the minutes or a motion to approve them.
I move for the approval of the minutes.
We have a motion and we need a second.
Second.
Thank you, Barry. And we will need to do roll call votes today. I apologize for that. It's a little bit tedious, but that's going to be necessary in the way that we're organizing our format. And I've asked Nathan to, as secretary, conduct all the roll call votes. So Nathan, if you would.
Before I get started, can you someone just confirm that you can hear me?
Can hear
We
you.
can hear you.
Additionally, there is a phone number that does not have a name with it. I want to make sure it's not a Board of Trustee member. If you are the owner of the 294-1665, would you please let us know who you are? Currently muted. Well, if at some point you can let me know who that is, but we will start with the roll call for the minutes. Dr. Benzing?
Aye.
Ms. Burnett,
Aye.
Ms. Cooper,
That number is me. I'm
Okay.
having to use my phone as well as look at you all online because of technical difficulties. Aye.
thank you. Mr. Corcoran,
Aye.
Dr. Dorsey,
Aye.
Dr. Evans,
Aye.
Ms. Morner,
Aye.
Dr. Nash,
Aye.
Mr. Phillips,
Aye.
Mr. Quinones,
Aye.
and I also vote aye. Motion passes.
Thank you, Nathan. And is Siri on the online or not? I guess. Siri here?
I do not see her listed as a.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So just briefly, I'd like to make some remarks in terms of my activities since the past meeting. And I've been attending a number of the committee meetings. I think that we've really done a good job in the interim with our activities in committees. And I commend the chairs and the members for being active on those committees. And I'll note that there are reports from our committees that are included in your meeting packet today. As we hear the reports, you may not be able to get all the information, but there's a lot of good work going on in committees. That said, I've created and appointed a new ad hoc committee called the University Partnerships Committee. And that was in large response to a request from the staff, including Joe and the curators. And the goal of that committee is to explore whether the museum should expand its participation in broader impact statements by partnering in university proposal submissions, especially for National Science Foundation grant funding, as they're emphasizing those parts of their proposals. And I want to thank Art Evans and Carol Nash for their willingness to serve on it with me, representing our board. We also have some foundation board members in DB Poley and Kathy O'Neill. And we haven't met yet, but I'm looking forward to some recommendations coming out of that committee to our full board. I also did participate, and you'll hear a little bit more about this in the Waynesboro Advocacy Committee report, in some tapings of videos that will be used to promote our project, as well as in a focus group discussion on some of the designs around the early childhood learning areas for the museum. And we had a really good group there, and I think you'll hear more about that as we get further into our agenda. A couple of notable things about today. Towards the end of today's agenda, we're going to have a FOIA training session, and that will be in closed meetings. There's a FOIA guide in your meeting packet as well. I'll call your attention to that. And then many of you and I think all of us got notification of the fact that Senator Warner's office nominated the museum for a national medal from the Museum and Library Service organization. And so that's a real high honor, and we're putting together our application for that. I'd also encourage you to check out our new website. The last couple of times I've been out there, there's some really good features to it. So I guess with that, I want to go ahead and ask for our treasurer's report, and I'll recognize our treasurer, Jennifer Burnett, for that.
Good morning. So you have got the first quarter financial summary in your board packet, which also you have some footnotes to that as well. So I'm going to mostly focus on the footnotes, and then at the end, if anyone has any specific questions. So we're expected to receive the $27,000 from the city of Martinsville by the end of next quarter. We're continuing to hold funds for the education pavilion. We're still waiting for the final state approval for that, which we believe will be imminent. And then once the construction starts, then the funds will be transferred over from the foundation to the museum. We also received additional federal funds through the Coronavirus Relief Fund, about $12,503. That's going to go to help offset expenses between March 1st, 2020 and December 30, 2020. Again, on the operating expense side, I've already talked about the holding of the funds for the education pavilion. We have had to replace the elevator, and you'll hear some more about that during the Operations and Facilities Committee report. But that total cost falls under the maintenance reserve budget. And I think that is actually underway or will be underway soon. It's a good time to do it since the visitation to the museum is limited, so it really doesn't affect things too much. The roof at the Douglas building needs some repair. They're waiting for the asbestos test to come back, but we're pretty sure it's not going to have any asbestos. So once that roof repair takes place, then funds will be transferred again from the maintenance reserve budget for the museum. The agency service charges have gone up a lot. We've undergone 2 audits. We just did a VITA audit, and that was at a total cost of $31,090. And then, you know, obviously we're making some savings on travel, utilities, and other operational components tied to the staffing reduction. So, you know, we'll continue to keep those funds, and then when anything comes up that the staff needs board approval for, then they will come to us for that. The energy service company's proposal, so that has to do with the solar panel array. And I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail on that because I think that's actually going to be talked about as well in either the operations or the facilities committee report. So that is all I have. If anyone has any questions or if any of the staff has anything to add.
And let me just remind everybody, if you could use the raise hand option, that would help me moderate our discussion. So again, if you click on participants at the bottom right, you should see the opportunity to raise your hand. Are there any questions for Jennifer? Seeing none, there are a couple of us on the phone, so I'll just, if you want to ask by phone, go ahead and unmute yourselves. Hearing none, I will go ahead and accept the treasurer's report. And then I'd like to ask our executive director for his report, which you'll find as attachment 9 if you're looking.
Thank you, Tom. I'm not going to walk through it point by point, though I'd be happy to take any questions on the verbiage that I submitted. Really what I want to point out is that we're doing well. We received word that the state is through with any budget reductions for the fiscal year. So we received none. So we should be good through the remainder of the year. And so far, the tea leaves suggest that we should be receiving level funding for next fiscal year. That said, it won't be until 2022 that it is projected that any special projects or new initiatives will be funded. That would include VMH Waynesboro campus. So we're kind of holding tight with all that. But the staff is doing well. We signed up 15 staffers to undergo some professional development through Virginia Association of Museums. And I'm sorry, not through Virginia Association of Museums, but the Association for Science and Technology Centers. We also included Mr. Poulin from VMH Foundation in that. So we were able to sit in on a number of sessions on diversity and inclusion and museum operations and so forth. So I was glad to see staffers take advantage of that. I have challenged the staff to look ahead. Christy and her team is preparing for things to return to some form of normal in 2021. So I've asked them to be prepared to offer summer camps should the environment allow. That said, we're also targeting October 2021 for our next Dragon Festival. We're hopeful by then it will be safe to have large gatherings again. If the safety measures are such that we can have gatherings sooner than that, we will be prepared to maybe squeeze in a smaller festival in advance to perhaps welcome back our visitors. The visitation has been just fine. We're open still Friday and Saturday. We're getting between 50 and 100 visitors a week. We also get people who turn up not knowing that we're closed during the week, and the staff have been excellent in keeping an eye out for them and allowing them to come in and self-guide through the gallery. So we've tried really hard to take advantage of those opportunities. I think most of everything else that I've got in my plan is going to be covered in the committee reports, so I won't belabor those. But before we move into the committee reports, does anybody have any questions regarding my executive director's report?
I'll look for a raised hand again.
I'm not seeing any. That said, one other thing that I failed to mention is brand new is we've asked the VMH Foundation to submit on our behalf to Virginia Association of Museums a nomination for us to be recognized through their annual Innovations Award. So we're going to be submitting to Mary Handy and her team the information. Basically what we're going to be putting up for consideration is Dragon Festival. For those of you relatively new to the board, you may have heard me talk about this, maybe not, but back in the day before Dragon Festival, when we put social media out there, we would get some good activity, whether it was announcements, events, anything like that. Once we put out Dragon Festival, the amount of activity we got on our social media increased by a couple of orders of magnitude, and that has continued. And so once people have engaged with us, they continually get our feed. And so all of our festivals and our events have seen a great increase over the last 3 years because of Dragon Festival. And that connection between science and popular culture has caused us to greatly expand our audiences. So I just learned yesterday, I had no idea, but there are actually 1,200 zip codes in Virginia. And during our last Dragon Festival, we had representation from 400 of them. So that's fully a third of all areas of Virginia that were represented by our visitors at last Dragon Festival. Numbers were high. That last one we ran, we had 2,700 people in just a day. And lastly, too, there were 18 states represented on that day. So I think we have good reason to put that out there. And as Jean had mentioned just a few minutes ago, it's just another step towards getting the word out that we're here and so forth. So we're continually working on that. Tom, I'll turn things over to you at this point.
Thanks, Joe. And I don't see any questions for you, so you must have done a great job. Do you want to take the advancement report now, or would you prefer to do that later? Do we want to hear from Ryan?
Yeah, I think it would be a good contiguous information if we have him present.
All right, then I'll recognize Ryan to give us the advancement report, which is attachment 10 in your packet.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks, everyone. So we covered a few things already, or Joe covered a few things already, but I just want to kind of highlight, as far as revenue, it's pretty strong considering the visitation. So our average per visitor as far as admissions and retail sales, which is the store, is almost double what it was this time last year. So what we're seeing is a higher percentage of visitors who are not members coming in. So people taking road trips, just general people that, again, are paying full price. As far as revenue, so again, it's on the museum side, it's primarily admissions and store. We have not done exhibit rentals, things like that. We've got a lot pending, but it's sitting at zero right now, with hopefully more coming up in 2021. We've got several, again, pending contracts for that. If you look at the endowment on page 2, so it continues to be strong considering the economic environment. So we did see, this is through September 30th. So we did see a little bit of drop after that in October, but the market continues to fluctuate. So we'll keep an eye on that. But considering the environment, it's relatively strong. I want to point out also, we've got a couple of new pages on the advancement report. So we've got on page 4 a sort of highlight of statistics of our social media outreach. So we've identified who we're reaching, who our visitors are, where they're coming from, what they're viewing, how long they're staying on different posts, things like that. So we try to really dig deep because social media is one of our primary marketing tools. So we want to see who we're reaching effectively, but also who we can reach more effectively using this data. There is another page, and I just emailed it out this morning. It's a very recent update. It includes a page on diversity and inclusion. So it's not part of the packet that was sent out, but you'll have that in your email. So basically, we'd identified of the partners we work with for purchasing, what percentage are minority owned, small business owned, and women owned. These are stats that the state actively tracks and metrics that we try to stay on top of. We also identify diversity of our staff as well. So these are things that the board had mentioned in the last meeting. As far as on the last page, we're looking at the map of our zip code distribution. This is again through July through September. So what we saw was pretty amazing. 50% of our visitors came from outside Virginia and North Carolina. So sort of talking to visitors and identifying what's happening there. A lot of folks were taking road trips this summer. It was a safe way to get out with the family, social distancing, things like that. So we saw a huge distribution of folks from other states beyond North Carolina as well. That has sort of dropped off a little bit in October, which is not on this report, obviously. We're kind of getting back to the more like 10% outside the Virginia and North Carolina, but it is a very strong still representation of folks from outside the area. As far as upcoming events, foundation-wise, we've got the Thomas Jefferson Awards, which we're going to hold in March 2021. The 2020 event was canceled, and so what we're going to do is recognize the 2020 awardees in 2021. And the committee for that event has looked at doing a virtual event. So that's what we're planning now, is some sort of really nice, high quality virtual event to, again, recognize those 2020 awardees. We're also looking at Grapes and Grains. Again, that was canceled in 2020. Looking at spring 2021. We've got a few options there. We're kind of researching online elements, virtual elements, but also possibly some outdoor type of event. So we've got some board members on the foundation side who have mentioned the opportunity to do an offsite outside event. So that would give us the opportunity for social distancing and more of a different environment that would be in a safe way. So we're exploring that. We'll hopefully have more details coming up in the next month or so on that. Those are kind of the highlights. Happy to answer any questions using the raise hand feature. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. And it's great to see that we're getting visitors from outside of the closest areas. That's great news, I think, and it's spreading the word around that it's a great place to go and visit. So, and I do appreciate that the statistics on the diversity. I'd like to spend a little time with those maybe in a coming meeting, as those will be updated to everyone. And I do see Carol Nash raising a hand, so I'll recognize Carol. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thank you, Tom. And it has to do with the diversity report, which I'm really glad to see. Thank you for sending that to us. One of the things that I think would be very important when you are talking about your VMNH staffing, if you could break that down further into the types of roles that you're dividing by women, men, and minorities, that would be really important. That's an important story there. So as you delve into this more deeply, and I know that just coming from university, we are seeing more and more interest in this, and from state agencies in particular, it might be it would be very, very helpful if you could break that down according to the roles that these folks are playing in the museum, because that's an indication, an important indication of decision-making, and agency has a lot to do with the way in which folks are being promoted. Perhaps it has a lot to do with the work that they do, and whether there are traditional gender roles at play here that might be preventing folks from moving up as they need to be. So it would just be very helpful to see that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carol, do you have any recommendations on how to divide those? I mean, certainly state level positions and the like. Is that the kind of thing you're looking for?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking. Yeah, they're just the employment categories would be very helpful instead of just staff.
Right on. And I do see Roberto has also raised his hand, so I'd like to recognize Roberto.
Yes, thanks. And since she's gone that great contribution, I then recommend you might as well throw the board in there as well to give the full picture of, you know, C+ leadership.
That's a great recommendation. And yeah, we look at diversity in a variety of different ways. So who we employ, so you'll see, like he said, the small minority owned and women owned businesses and things like that. Of course, the audience that we serve, we're trying to capture that, the school groups that come, what kind of populations they represent. And so this is a new initiative, and I do appreciate Ryan spending the time to put up those statistics, because I think it's really helpful for us. Any other questions? Carol, I'm assuming you can drop your hand if you're done. The next thing I'd like to do is recognize our chair for our nominating committee, Lisa Merner, and not so much for a report, but just to have a discussion about the upcoming process for nominations, which we'll need to take a slate of in February. So Lisa.
Yep, sorry about that. I was looking through the diversity report. Let me just say that I didn't raise my hand for that, but I'm very excited that we're sort of embarking on that effort and pulling that information together. When I give my report from the strategy committee, I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. But it's just, I think it's an incredibly important thing for us to start talking about. All right, so for the nominating committee, in terms of our process, a slate will be presented at the February meeting. Then the slate will be announced again at the May board meeting, and a vote for board officers will take place, and nominations can come from the floor. So Dr. Benzing will have completed his 2 successive terms. So we'll have to, as chairs, we'll have to figure out what to do about that. There is no term limit for vice chair, secretary, or treasurer. So it's going to be an interesting decision about what we do next for chair, but a slate will be presented at the February board meeting. Meanwhile, if you are interested, if you want to serve in a leadership role, please let Tom, Joe, me, Art know, so we can start thinking about that. All are welcome to put forward their interest in serving.
Thank you, Lisa. Any questions for Lisa about the nominating committee before we let her go into her strategic planning committee report? I'd also remark that if anybody wants to serve on the nominating committee, they're welcome to contact me, and I'm sure Lisa would be willing to accept some more members to the current nominating committee as they get active in preparation for our February meeting. So let's go ahead then to our strategic planning committee report, which you'll find as attachment number 4.
Yep, and I'm not going to go into detail since you've got the full minutes. I just want to talk about a few highlights. The strategic planning committee had a really good meeting. We talked mostly about 3 things: the pandemic, diversity, and the strategic plan for the museum. On the pandemic, our discussion, the most interesting part of our discussion is really what should we continue doing going forward that we started doing during the pandemic. One of the things that came up and was discussed was a possibility of continuing to have meetings virtually. That would save us some money, but you don't get the same sort of interaction. So I think that's something for us to think about. Maybe post-vaccination, maybe for summer meetings. but there are definitely pros and cons. Another thing we talked about is that the museum has done a great job maintaining our presence in the public and even putting some new things forward, like, Ben in nature, et cetera, and how we think it's really important to continue some of those initiatives post-pandemic that we've started. So I think that's something that the museum staff and management team are going to think about, and that we as a board should think about. Another thing, this was just a sort of a plea to the strategic committee, and I'll make it here. Membership and visitorship are not where we'd hope to be given the pandemic. So please do use your social circles, your social media to sort of promote the museum membership and museum attendance. The other discussion we had that was quite interesting was on diversity. And we talked about the diversity of the staff at the museum, but we also talked about some of the things the museum is doing to reach out to more diverse audiences. We are in the process, I understand, of getting some of our signs translated so that they're not just in English. We do a lot of a lot of outreach to low income schools. We also take EBT cards, which I did not realize. So that was good to learn. So our efforts in tracking on diversity shouldn't just be about staffing. That's sort of like the minimum of what you do on diversity. It should really be about what we're doing to advance diversity in the community, and what we're doing to outreach to diverse visitors. We did talk about getting more demographic data on our visitors and whether they're diverse or not. That's an initiative that Joe is going to take back to the team. Not asking visitors when they visit if they're diverse or not, but really looking at zip code data to try and understand whether they're coming from areas that are sort of maybe more diverse than others. And then finally, we talked about the potential for internships for diverse or socioeconomically challenged students, or maybe both. A couple of the members of the strategic committee, including myself, low-income families took advantage of internships and ended up doing quite well. So that is something that we talked about. We also talked about the strategic plan, but I know that is going to come up in a lot of other report outs, so I'm going to not talk about that. Any questions for the committee, the strategy committee?
Looking, I don't see any raised hands. Anyone on the phone would like to call or unmute themselves and ask a question?
I will say, while people are thinking, if they have a question, that if you have agenda items for the next strategy meeting, things you think we should be thinking about or talking about that we aren't, we are all ears. Diversity was a great thing for us to talk about, and it had not originally been on our agenda, and it was suggested, and I'm so glad we did it.
And I'll say, regarding the question about what we've done right in the pandemic, I do think these virtual meetings have helped us with attendance. I made that remark at our last meeting, and I hope that even if we go back to meeting face to face, maybe there'll be an opportunity for people who aren't able to travel to participate virtually. I think this has really broadened the reach out to the board, and we've done a good job at engaging everyone. I see Roberto's hand, so I'll recognize Roberto.
Thanks. I just wanted to provide a little context on this and this new topic, that it is a rather current item. So for example, the state is actually currently doing a disparity study within the Small Business and Supplier Diversity Agency to see across the state how small business and minority businesses may or may not be either taking advantage of the programs that exist, or why those reasons are going on. So that's not done every year. That happens every few years. So rather timely, and something that other categories within the state that are being addressed, including the creation of a chief diversity officer. We may be the only state, or very few states have one. and we have one. And even down at the local level, I know Fairfax County currently has created an equity task force that is looking to see how the county's operations are being executed and promoted, and seeing what disparities may exist to ensure that all the county folks are getting their fair share, so to speak. So very timely topic, and we're not the only ones. There's actually other folks that are quite deep into this already. So it's great for us to be ahead of things.
Thanks, Roberto. Not seeing any other hands, then we'll go ahead and move along in our agenda. And I'd like to recognize Faye Cooper as the chair of the Waynesboro Advocacy Committee for our report. And you'll find that as attachment number 5.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm having to deal with some microphone issues. Can you all hear me?
We
Okay,
can
great.
now.
We can. There's a little ringing going on, but we can.
A little feedback. Okay, well, I'm going to give it a try. Basically, as Joe mentioned, we have had kind of a hold put on our funding for our design work, our detailed planning design. Are y'all getting an echo?
Yes, we are, but it's manageable.
Okay. But anyway, that doesn't mean the advocacy committee is sitting back on our haunches. We are staying very active, and our goal is to maintain our engagement with the Waynesboro community and surrounding communities. And there's been a lot going on. As someone mentioned, Tom mentioned, I think, we convened a group of educators. I'm just going to step away from the computer. We convened a large group of educators on October 27th, and it was really a really great session of about a dozen folks who gave us input on design and exhibit suggestions for our gallery area for pre-K through 5. And there's a summary. Joe included a summary of that in your package, so you might want to take a look at that. And we plan to hold a couple more of these sessions in the coming months for other exhibit areas. There was also a Dino drive-through day, and on the when was that? October 10th, and the 100 tickets sold very, very quickly. Even though the weather wasn't ideal, the staff reported that it was a really great day. A lot of area families attended, and they were all not only were able to see a lot of exhibits, but had takeaways. The 3 we have a brochure that each of them got about the Waynesboro campus, and so we hope to do more of those kinds of projects as well. Joe and Lynn Poulin and Tom have all been participating in the Waynesboro science but presentation series. And we hope to get some of those online. There have been some technical difficulties, but hopefully those will be addressed soon. And then also, as Joe mentioned, or Tom mentioned, that we have produced several, I think 4 promotional videos for the Waynesboro project. And Joe, are we lined up to show one of those to folks today?
I believe so. We're going to give this a go. So Zach's listening
Okay,
in.
good.
So I'm going to let him handle the technical side of this.
Okay, great. Well, we did want to share that. And one of the topics that, as those have been being produced, is the topic of diversity. And so we may be doing some revisions to address that, because Waynesboro is a very diverse community. And so we hope to have a little bit more diverse representation in these videos. So anyway, it looks like it's ready to roll.
Zach, you've got to share the computer audio setting.
We're on the cusp.
Is that working?
Bringing the Virginia Museum of
You
Natural
got it.
campus to Central Virginia, developing a campus that will bring science education to this part of the state in a place that's very accessible to both statewide, national, as well as an international audience.
We are really fortunate. 2 miles from where Skyline Drive and the Blue Ridge Parkway meet, we have a very active greenway trail system that we're continuing to build out. We have excellent parks in the city, and so tying that in with the museum and their mission, it really aligns with our mission of putting people outdoors in special places.
When you think of where this museum is going to be placed, next to our river, just miles from the Shenandoah Valley Parkway, the Blue Ridge Parkway, it's going to be super valuable for the citizens of Waynesboro to have this right in our backyard.
Beyond the audiences that will draw from the Blue Ridge Parkway and Shenandoah National Park, we're going to be a very short drive from places like Lexington, Stanton, Charlottesville, and Harrisonburg, Virginia. I tell everyone, whether it's a park project or an economic development project or otherwise, is that to build a great city, you build great places. The same thing applies to regions and our Commonwealth more broadly. And so I see this as a win for Waynesboro, but I see it as a win for the Commonwealth of Virginia too. I can't wait to bring this here. And the reason is that we have so many great ideas that we're going to bring to reality in the near future. We're not just going to have static exhibits. We're going to have dynamic exhibits that are going to be one of a kind. The Natural History Museum is going to be an asset for teachers and their students all across Central and Northern Virginia. Part of our campus is going to contain a professional laboratory with which we will have university partners from James Madison University, University of Virginia, Virginia Tech, and others that will facilitate work in and around the Shenandoah Valley, as well as the Blue Ridge, the South River, the Shenandoah River.
What teacher doesn't want that opportunity to engage their kids more with the content?
Personally, I can't wait to bring my grandchildren here. It's exciting to me. And I love the fact that it will be right here in Waynesboro.
This project in Waynesboro, I think, is going to be a significant driver of our future economy.
We become more of a tourism destination. We're the only place on the planet where you have the aspect of Shenandoah National Park, Blue Ridge Parkway, Appalachian Trail, 2 national forests. So this just adds to that whole complement of things to do here.
I really feel we've been on a journey, and this has been leading Waynesboro. The museum is a cap that many of us that have been here for a number of years have been pushing towards.
Everybody in Virginia knows the History Museum. They're going to come to Waynesboro and visit us. Our motto in Waynesboro is hospitality in the valley. We can live up to that motto.
So that is one of about 4 videos that have been produced. The others are a little briefer, little more to the point, that can be used in different ways, but they really are very well done. Congratulations to the staff for putting this together.
You're good.
So does anybody have any questions?
Any questions for Faye? I think I see Carol's hand.
Carol.
Unmute.
Yeah.
I recently had a discussion with the board of the Archaeological Society of Virginia, and I'm past president, and we are getting ready to see the transition to a new set of officers as we come into the new year. And it's undergoing a strategic planning process right now. We have over 800 members, and there are 3 chapters in the Shenandoah Valley that together make up about I would say maybe a 1/5 of the membership of the organization. One of the questions that has always been part of our outreach has been geographic distribution around the state. We have a 700-acre farm that was given to us in Charles City County, and that's where our headquarters are. That's where our visitor center is. But we've always wanted a center in Western Virginia. And this has been part of our discussion for probably 30 years. We raised money toward one at one point and just gave that up once we were given the farm at Kittywan. But the board is really interested in the ways in which the Archaeological Society of Virginia and VMNH could come together to kind of bring to fruition this goal of having a stronger presence in Western Virginia. And it just seems like such a natural fit. So I'm wondering if it might be possible for someone to come to our January board meeting, which is virtual. We'll be on January the 30th to talk more about this. As I said, we're kind of finalizing our strategic plan, and the whole Western Virginia thing is very much part of it as well. Also, the Wintergreen Nature Foundation, I'm on their science advisory board, is very keen to make a strong connection to BMNH on this. And so I think I'm just so excited about this. And now thinking about, you know, as we're kind of in a holding pattern with the design, but just thinking about where the strengths are in terms of our region and the organizations that already pull in people who think like we do, think about natural history and cultural history and the intersection. And it just seems like it's a really important time right now to make those connections and grow together. So if you would like, I'm glad to help you all make those connections, but particularly with the ASV.
Carol, I think those are both great ideas. And I'm sure Tom, I see Tom nodding. I think we should discuss this more at our December advocacy committee meeting. You are on that committee now, and I think that would be a great role for you to play in helping us identify these opportunities for partnerships. But thank you for bringing those up. Any other questions?
I see Joe's hand and I saw Lisa's hand briefly. Joe?
I just wanted to mention to Carol that whatever she thinks is appropriate, obviously we'll discuss it at the December Waynesboro Advocacy Committee meeting, but I know I could attend if it's helpful, and I would also ask Hayden and Maddie if they would like to participate as well.
Sounds great. And Lisa, did you still have a question, or was your question answered?
I was just going to make a comment that I thought that the video was incredibly well done, and I'm proud of the team that produced it. That's all. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Lisa. I agree. Very well done. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Faye. So let me go ahead and recognize Barry Dorsey as the chair of our Operations/Facilities Committee for a report. Barry?
Tom, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you just fine.
I'm not on the screen, and I just wondered if I showed up. Okay.
Loud and strong.
First of all, I agree with Carol and everything she said about diversity. As we have one vacancy on the board, we need to, Tom, we need to talk to the governor about appointing a black to the board. Let's say the Ryan, where will the Jefferson Awards be held? Tom, Joe?
Hi, Barry. They're going to be at VMNH, but primarily they're going to be virtual.
Yeah.
And Hayden did a great job talking about Indians at the Heritage Museum. And we might give him an opportunity to talk about Indians today, because there was a great article in the paper about that. Let me.
Yes, Barry, the report is attachment number 3. I think maybe I forgot to mention that. And I think you wanted to highlight some things about the pavilion, perhaps, and the energy upgrades.
Sure. There are 3 items for discussion at the Facilities Committee. One was the passenger elevator. Second was the energy savings. And the third was the Gene S. Adams Education Pavilion. Let me talk about the passenger elevator first. What's the status of the elevator, Joe?
It's currently under renovation. Basically, we're going to be keeping the passenger compartment, but we're upgrading all the technology that goes with it. It's 13 years old, a lot of proprietary material, which makes it very expensive to repair. So we're using maintenance reserve to finish that, and I believe it should be done early 2021.
Okay. Tim agreed that Tim felt good about Roman, the Roman award, the Roman company. And Tim replied yes when we confirmed the maintenance reserve funds available. The energy savings, I've done some research on that, and Lisa was correct in saying that the solar panels need to be replaced after 25 years, and she was going to review all the proposals. The Facilities Committee recommends that the full board back the energy savings, and that Lisa review the proposals, but I don't know if she has an opportunity to do so. Third, the Gene S. Adams Education Pavilion. All the paperwork has been, plans have been submitted. We're waiting to go ahead from the governor's office, so the architect can engage with the contractor. And that concludes my report. If there are any questions, Tom?
Thank you, Barry. And I do see Joe's hand, so I'll recognize Joe.
I'd actually like to ask Jonathan to cover the concept of energy savings, what the proposals in general recommend that we do. Jonathan, as I recall, they're fairly similar, just kind of the details were somewhat different, but if you'd cover maybe overall what the museum would look like next year once we engage with one of the contractors.
Sure thing. Just a quick review. We started the process approximately a year ago. There was federal funds that became available to reach out to ESCOs or energy service companies to design and build and implement energy cost savings. Lisa, I'm sorry. Energy cost savings project for the museum. And there were 6 participants. 2 submitted proposals for approval. Mostly focusing on solar and electric utilization and reducing our dependence on the grid. There was some water. There's other projects that include HVAC upgrades. They're not completely, the equipment we have is functioning well, and they believe it just needs some upgrades. So that's kind of behind the scenes, but both companies submitted their proposals with solar panels in mind. So there will be an opportunity to educate the public as well as put our, I guess, a best foot forward on having solar energy as part of our mix for operations. They did note, had the Department of Mines, Minerals, and Energy reach out to both of the participants in the presentations, and they did confirm that they have to follow the Buy American Bacon Davis pricing. So everything will be bought through federal funds, so that being the stipulation that everything has to be made in America and bought in America.
Jonathan, does that mean that the solar panels don't have to be replaced every 25 years?
So solar panels decay. There's no way to prevent that yet. Technology is still catching up, but the general lifespan is 25 years. And I believe at the end of 25 years, you still recover some of the solar, but I think it's 90%, and then it goes down from there as far as their ability to capture the energy and add it back to the grid, or we can use it at our building. So slowly over time, I believe the panels will need to be replaced. Lisa may know a little bit more about that. She had some good comments at the meeting.
Yeah, sorry, I raised my hand. So Barry, what the fact that the panels will be bought in America means is that there's less of a chance that they will have some of the hazardous constituents like lead and cadmium that some of the panels that come from outside of the US have. So it's not so much a life thing, a life duration thing, as it is a how much it will cost us to dispose of them at the end of their life thing. So I'm very pleased to hear that we'll be buying American panels because they may be more expensive on the front end, but it will save us on disposal cost at the back end, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Lisa.
Tom, any questions about the Facilities Committee report?
So I didn't hear any recommendations at this point. You're still working on the energy savings part, and then maybe we'll get a recommendation at some point that will come before the board at our next meeting. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That is the plan. Both of the presentations have been scored. So we will get back to you with a update on who scored the highest. And then the next step will be an energy grade audit. So we'll bring the company back in and produce an audit that'll show us exactly what the right size for our building, the right size of the project for our facility.
Yeah, from what I understand, this is a win-win situation for us. I don't think we can lose. It sounds like, they're proposing to do something for us, and if they don't meet the goals, then they have to pay for it. So I don't see any problems with going forward on this, and appreciate your putting us in contact with that program. Next, I'd like to recognize Jennifer Burnett as the chair for the Development Marketing Committee and for a report. And that's attachment number 6 if you're looking through your files.
Okay. Yeah, so looking at the Finance and Marketing Committee report, we had a meeting on October 26th. And basically sort of went through the first quarter financials, which we've already, discussed and gone through. Joe also reported with that we were down on our utility cost, and then Jonathan mentioned we are in the process of looking at options to spend down the O1 funds, if any funds remain at the end of fiscal year 21. Ryan has already presented the advancement report. We talked about virtual programming, marketing, and monetization via philanthropic support. And, one thing that we had talked about too was the EBT cards, and Lisa had mentioned that in her strategic planning. So everyone, basically the museum won't turn anyone away. We'll honor all the discounts accordingly if someone has an EBT card. So basically you get $2 for adult and $1 for child admission rates. And we also are, looking at some funding opportunities from different foundations. And so far we've bought new equipment for virtual learning, which includes new camera lenses with some of those funds that we have received. We kind of already talked about our zip codes. We have, I don't know if everyone has looked at the website recently, but we have a website redo, which is really good. And I think that's about it, unless anyone has any questions on the report.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any questions for Jennifer? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move right along to research and collections. And I'd like to recognize Art Evans. And I do know that we have a couple of motions that will get voted on for this. So just calling your attention to the fact that you're probably going to get called for a roll call vote shortly.
Okay, thanks, Tom. I want to direct everyone's attention to item 11, which is the full quarter report. And as you can see, the curatorial staff has been very active in spite of the pandemic. And I want to commend the staff for adapting so well. And as we'll hear momentarily, that they've had to make some adjustments to their work, but their interactions with the public has increased dramatically. The Research and Collections Committee met this morning and unanimously recommends the nominations of Doctors Jim Beard and Jackson Means as Curator Emeritus and Research Associate respectively to the board. And I'll turn it over to Tom to vote on that formally.
So by direction of the committee, I move the adoption of accepting emeritus status for Dr. Beard, and we'll take these as separate motions. There's no second needed as it's coming out of a committee recommendation, and there are at least 2 board members on the committee. So I'll go ahead and call for a roll call vote. Nathan, if you would.
Do we need to separate out which one we're doing first?
I'm calling for the emeritus status for Dr. Beard first, and then we'll go to the next one.
All right, thank you. Dr. Benzing,
Aye.
Ms. Burnett,
Aye.
Ms. Cooper,
Aye.
Mr. Cothran,
Aye.
Dr. Dorsey,
Aye.
Dr. Evans,
Aye.
Ms. Marner,
Aye.
Dr. Nash,
Aye.
Mr. Phillips,
Aye.
Mr. Quinones.
Aye.
I also vote aye. The motion passes.
Thank you for that, and certainly well-deserved honor for Dr. Beard. The next recommendation from the committee, and I'd like to move, is the adoption of Jackson Means as a research associate. And so we'll do another roll call vote on that, and I'll already vote aye.
Thank you. Ms. Burnett,
Aye.
Ms. Cooper,
Aye.
Mr. Cothran,
Aye.
Dr. Dorsey,
Aye.
Dr. Evans,
Aye.
Ms. Marner,
Aye.
Dr. Nash,
Aye.
Mr. Phillips,
Aye.
Mr. Quinones.
Aye.
I also vote aye. The motion passes.
Thank you. And Art, are there any other remarks from the?
Yes, yes. Once again, I want to encourage everyone to read through the quarterly report to see the accessions and the activities of our curators, especially with regards to their research and outreach activities. We met this morning, the committee met this morning and discussed a number of topics. We also looked at, in terms of the pandemic, the research and collection activities continue. Curators are catching up on writing their research and engaging in local field work. Collection visits by researchers and students are slowly picking up at the museum. Public inquiries to curators have increased dramatically during this time, and we hope that this will translate into sustained interest in the museum's programs post-pandemic. Doctors Kuiper and Hayden presented several options for the disposition of a collection of Guatemalan street art presented to the museum a few years ago that includes some classical Mayan antiquities that date between 200 and 900 AD. A particular interest are stone figurines based around the culture of mushroom worship or mycolatry. Mycolatry includes ritual ceremonies involving hallucinogenic mushrooms, among other things. The museum staff and research collections committee are in unanimous agreement to repatriate this collection to Guatemala and will engage in a multi-pronged approach to determine the best way to achieve this while observing best practices for dealing with the antiquities. Once a path for repatriation is determined, the Research and Collections Committee will make a recommendation to the full board. Finally, the first steps have been taken to establish a molecular lab at the museum. Such a facility in-house will not only enhance the research of museum curators, but will also attract visiting scientists and students from around the state and beyond. Mr. Chairman, that's the end of my report.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Art? I'm looking for a raised hand if you do. I'll only remark that I thought it was a really good meeting. I participated in the Research and Collections Committee meeting this morning and look forward to more about the discussion on the Guatemalan artifacts and collection. Let's go ahead then and move forward to our Education Committee report. And I recognize Cord Cothran, and I call your attention to attachment number 12, which are agenda for the meeting, but include a interesting summary table that I always find valuable regarding our educational programs. So Cord.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to go over 3 or 4 items real quick that we went over this morning.
We lost you, Cord.
And they won't be going back to school until January the 5th or 6th here in Danville, we may have an opportunity to sell a few more of those to children and groups that are going to be home during those holidays. Also, another neat thing is on Fridays, they have the activity tables now at the museum. So when people are there, they actually have educational materials and educators there. And we think that's really neat. And then I think this is something, maybe I missed it somewhere, but I wrote this down. I thought this was really cool, is that there's going to be the professional development videos and done in conjunction with the curators. So I think that's going to be a really cool thing also. But that's the 3 main topics that I got from ours today, and that's my report.
Thank you, Cord. Any questions for Cord? Of course, it's a challenging time for our educational public programs, but I think we're doing a lot of good things to reach out in non-traditional ways. So
yeah, just a quick follow-up on that. I think come early January, we should see a better turnaround also in our educational department, because they just released another round of CARES Act funding and so forth that won't get paid out until the end of December. So hopefully there'll be some more funding going there for some of the local areas too. So.
don't see any questions, Cord. So I would like to move to the next part of our agenda, which is to go into closed session. And so it'll take me here to read the motion to go into closed session, and then we'll have to do a roll call vote on that. And our closed session will be dealing with the FOIA training. So I move that the Board of Trustees of the Virginia Museum of Natural History enter closed session for a training regarding the Freedom of Information Act pursuant to the exemption in the Virginia Code, Section 2.2-3711A1. And this motion does require a second.
I second the motion.
Thanks, Art. And Nathan, if you'll put us into a roll call vote, and I'll vote aye.
Thank you. Ms. Burnett,
Aye.
Ms. Cooper,
Aye.
Mr. Cothran,
Aye.
Dr. Dorsey,
Aye.
Dr. Evans,
Aye.
Ms. Murner, you might have lost her. Okay, Dr. Nash,
Aye.
Mr. Phillips,
Aye.
Mr. Quinones.
Aye.
Lisa, we'll come back to you for your vote. Thank you. Thumbs up. And I also vote aye. The motion passes.
Thank you. And Audrey Burgess will be leading our FOIA training. And so I would ask Zach at this point to disconnect the live stream.
I just want to give everybody a heads up. You'll have the ability to leave the breakout room and rejoin the main session when the closed session is over. But you will also have the option to leave the meeting. You do not want to leave the meeting. You just want to leave the closed session.
Thank you for that clarification. So we're going into a breakout session is the way I understand it. And then we'll have the opportunity to return to the main session once we are done with the business in our closed meeting.
Is there something we physically need to do with our Zoom thing?
No, ma'am. I'm going to send you to the closed session automatically. So you'll be sent to there with all board members, and Audrey will be in there as well.
As we're making that transition, I'll just call your attention to the FOIA guide, and I think we'll also have a slide set.
I wasn't really sure of the board's desire regarding staff. I didn't bring it up. So I figured if they wanted us there, they would have, said something. So, but I encourage you to look over the FOIA guidelines. I think you all have been doing just fine. Did we lose Ben?
It's Ben. It's
You might
Ben's in the closed session.
The only one. Oh, and Hayden is too, I guess.
Yeah.
Are we still live on YouTube, Zach?
This is live. We're live.
Oh, okay. Good to know.
Yes, so we're all live, everybody. We're still recording. Ben and Hayden must have just left the meeting. They're not in the closed session.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't know how long this is going to take. I'm gonna take a break. Well, I don't remember. There are no minutes for a closed session because they have to then certify when they come out that nothing but whatever the topic was discussed, as I recall.
Well, there won't be any minutes because I'm not in there. So I guess there aren't any.
I'm going to take a quick run to the restroom. I have everyone's cell number. So if you happen to drift away from the computer and they come back, I'll send you a quick text. And frankly said, I mean, there's new business and announcements though. I don't foresee anything significant. Rhonda will need you obviously, and Zach will need you, but Jonathan, Ryan, Christy, you're welcome to stick around. I have no idea if we're going to cover anything else that's useful, but after I take a break, I'll linger around the computer so I'll know when they come back.
Zach, I appreciate the reminder that we're on YouTube. That's always good to know.
Are we still on YouTube?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Oh.
Rhonda, I meant to send it to you earlier, but I forgot. I sent you the examples of past minutes.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So.
Yep. I need something to go by.
Yep.
How long do you think this training will last?
Closed sessions are unpredictable. Sometimes it's, 20 minutes,
okay,
10 minutes, an hour. You never know.
Yeah.
Depends on what they're.
All right.
I'm going to step away for a sec too. I'll be right back.
I'm gonna do the same.
What'd you say?
Just welcome back. I welcome back myself.
Oh, okay. Good on you, man.
Thanks.
We're coming back from our closed session.
Geez, Tom, I thought we lost you.
No, lots of good discussion, but
Sure.
And it looks like most of us are back. So let me go ahead and read the certification, which will require a motion, a second of that motion and a vote. Whereas the Board of Trustees of the Virginia Museum of Natural History convened in closed session meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. And whereas Virginia Code Section 2.2-3712 requires a certification by this board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law, now be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Virginia Museum of Natural History hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under Virginia law, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Virginia Museum of Natural History. So I need a second.
Second.
And Nathan, if you'll do a roll call for us, and I'll vote aye.
Thank you, Ms. Burnett,
Aye.
Ms. Cooper,
Aye.
Mr. Kaufman,
Aye.
Dr. Dorsey. Dr. Dorsey, you appear to be muted. We'll come back. Dr. Evans.
Aye.
Ms. Murner.
Aye.
Dr. Nash.
Aye.
Mr. Phillips.
Aye.
Mr. Quinones.
Aye.
I vote aye, and we will come back to you, Mr. Dorsey. Dr. Dorsey. All right, either way, the motion passes.
Thank you. And we're getting close to the end of our agenda. We do have new business. Are there any new business to discuss? Hearing none and seeing no hands, let me ask if there are any announcements.
If I can make an
Yeah.
offer.
Sure.
I did listen in on the executive session last night. Unfortunately, I was not able to listen in on the records and collections, as I was actually on the education folks. But I know the issue of the Guatemala artifacts had a very lively discussion in executive session. I don't know to what extent we actually made a contact to the Guatemalan embassy, but just wanted to offer that there is one of the governor's appointees to the Virginia Latino Advisory Board is from Guatemala and has contacts in the embassy and knows the ambassador. So if that is something that would be of benefit, I am more than happy to connect him. Dr. Sergio Ramola, he's very well recognized within the government circles here in the state and as a doctor in his daytime profession. So I just wanted to offer that up.
Thanks, Roberto. If you could forward that information to Joe, and then he could pass that along to Dr. Hayden, that would be great. That would help facilitate the process.
Yeah, that's an excellent suggestion. Any other announcements? Well, I do want to thank you for your participation and your forbearance in the way we've held the meeting today. And we will have a meeting in February. It's likely that we're going to be virtual still, but I hope that at some point we can meet face to face once again. And I encourage you to participate as you can with the committees and reach out to me if you have any questions about how to engage yourself further with the work of the board. And so with that, and not needing a motion, I will say that our meeting is adjourned. We have no further business, and thanks all.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Very much appreciate it.